Well, kids, welcome to another episode of Rim Shots with Sean right here in the Rock Ridge Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And my girl Raquel out the West Coast, she keeps connecting me with these absolutely fantastic guests, and tonight is no exception. All the way from Los Angeles, California. Dan Sindel, how are you?
I'm good, and you weren't too far from wrong. It's pretty lost out here.
Yeah, I tell you, has your weather been nice?
Oh yes, incredible out here. Nice
Yeah.
and warm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we had a nice day the day before yesterday. Then it snowed a little bit yesterday. So that's the weather in Canada. So, but
Ah,
I digress. So you got an EP coming out, and I read the presser. You've been at this, I guess, a while, and I guess talk about it, Dan, because it's the vibe that I get from what I read is that it was a little bit timing, a little bit the planets were aligning for you to get this thing going. So talk a little bit about what's coming out.
well, where would you like to start? My gosh, I've been around a long time and still plugging away. Yeah, I've
You
been.
so
Excuse
just
me.
just early '80s. It says here you've shared the stage with Accept, Saxon, King Diamond, Wendy O. Williams, Racer X, Armored Saint, Flotsam and Jetsam, Helmet, Grim. All those, every one of those bands are bands that I grew up listening to, obviously, and admired them from afar. Are you born and bred from Los Angeles?
Yes, I'm native Southern California, a valley dude, if you will.
So you came up during that whole era. You saw the everything from the I won't go too far back, but Van Halen to the Knack to Quiet Riot to Motley Crue to the hair metal to you saw it all.
All of that when I was in junior high school. To date myself, it was about 1976 when I decided to start playing guitar. That's when Zeppelin put out the live album and the movie, The Song Remains the Same.
Yep.
That changed my life. And then a couple years later, when I was in high school, yeah, things were just so amazing. Unfortunately, I missed Van Halen playing all the background beer parties around here. When I was in high school, their first album hit, but in the clubs, I was so lucky to see Randy Rhoads, Quiet Riot, all those guys before anything big happened. And then by the time the early 80s came out, the whole LA heavy metal explosion happened that most of the world knows about. Everybody got signed. And the band I was with, we were fighting hard. Things never quite went as far as we hoped, but in the run that we had, yeah, we were sharing the stage with some of the biggest names in the world. Very exciting time.
Well, and I think a lot of people. I mean, I here in Halifax. I mean, I lived through the grunge phase where
Mm-hmm.
Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all those guys get signed, and then Seattle comes up to Halifax and starts signing bands that were together 2 weeks. And I mean, I wasn't one of those bands, and I wasn't in that thing. But I think people read about and listen and hear about Los Angeles back in that day, and I think the impression they get is everybody gets signed. It was like you started a band, you got signed. That wasn't the case,
No,
right?
no. A majority of them did, but it was all about timing. You had to have been ready.
Right.
It's interesting when all of Los Angeles was getting signed and hitting the road, Rat, Great White, Motley Crue. I mean, anyone you can think of. Man, it was so frustrating for the band I was with. We had to get rid of our singer due to personality issues or whatever. And it took us almost over a year, year and a half to find our next singer that we felt we could push forward with and be proud of. And in that time, we missed the boat. All of LA ended up getting signed. It dried up and it moved on. Grunge came along, hip hop came along. Seattle was the great heavy metal killer around this town.
Well, everybody when I hear Nirvana, it's like I always refer to it as the sound of the first phase of my music career dying because I mean I just I couldn't embrace that music, right? Because it was just
Mm.
like this whole. I'm becoming super successful. My life sucks, sort of thing. It just wasn't me. And I had a lot of friends that kind of jumped on the bandwagon because they wanted to go that route, and that's totally fine. What was the name of your band back then, by the way, Dan?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Stone Soldier.
So you guys would have been sharing the stage with all those guys, and then I'd mentioned bands like Odin. You probably would have been around when Odin was there, correct?
Oh, yeah, we played with Odin.
So
They were
Sean
one of our.
Duncan,
Sean, yeah, buddy.
Sean's a
Yeah.
good buddy of mine. He's a very very nice fella. One of the guys that I
All
go to quite a bit.
all
Currently in
the
the
Duncan
Lincolns.
boys. There's Jeff and Matt and Sean and who am I forgetting?
Too many Duncan boys, and they're all great fellas. So brings us to the only love you when you're winning, which I'm going to say is probably a little bit poetic in this whole stream of things. Would it not be?
I would dare say sarcastic and cynical at best.
And I get it 100%.
Yes, they only love you when you're winning, huh?
Well, and it's funny. I had this conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago. We'll call it the hometown sort of thing where
Mhm,
um, you're in your hometown, you're doing pretty well, but they pay attention to from people that aren't in your hometown.
mhm.
And then when things finally go your way, it's like they discovered you and they were supportive of you and behind you all the time, right? Is that, pretty much the gist of and the theme of this?
Well, I suppose that would be one small microcosm of it all.
Do
But
tell.
I mean, realistically, that can go in any damn direction you choose. Sport fans, you're on top, you blow the crucial game, and now they hate you, they're booing your ass. You win the lottery, now everyone's your best friend. Where were they last week? I mean, whatever, they only love you when you're winning.
So talk a little bit about the project. So yeah, you're listening it as an EP. So I guess from stem to stern, how long did it take you to put this together? Who were some of the people that were involved? Maybe some of the players that you used, your process. How did it come together?
Well, interesting enough, this collection of songs, the 6 song EP, is from a batch of initially 11 that I recorded about 3, 4 years ago. It was just after COVID was simmering down and people felt a little more safe to get together again, even though we were all kind of wondering if getting into a room were we going to catch it and die kind of a thing.
Right.
But during that period of time, all that isolation, I just thought, oh my God, what's happening to our beautiful world here? And I got busy. I had nothing better to do. So I just started really getting into my demo work. And I found a collection of songs of all the ones I ever written. And I thought, man, sure would be nice to get these shined up and turn them into a real professional project. So I spent time in my room recording the guitars and the bass and laying out the basic rough tracks. Then I finally got with my good friend John Perpit. He's just an amazing sound man, recording engineer. I got into his place. I hired about 5 or 6 different drummers, people that were in town and available, and I got them in to record a whole handful of these songs, and it's pretty cool. Once I got the drums and the vocals done in John's studio, I brought them back to my little rig in my room, and I redid all the guitars, I redid all the bass, did some background vocals, and then got them back to being mixed. The first collection was put out about 3 years ago. I had John mix a couple of them, and I hired a very amazing multi-platinum Grammy-winning engineer named Steve Sykes to help me as well. And that was the first collection, Unpopular Music for Popular People, Volume 1. And this time around, I was still sitting with all these other songs additionally in my hard drive. And, time, money, the whole thing. I was just really wondering, when am I going to get these things out? So I contacted my old high school my high school friend, Danny Saber. And, I recently caught up with him just a couple of years ago after high school. And once I kind of caught up with him again on Facebook, I just thought, oh, dude, wow. Because he, after high school, got busy working in the LA studios as an intern or what have you. And he ended up being first call mixer for David Bowie and U2 and Marilyn Manson and Ozzy Black Sabbath and Michael Hutchins from NXS. I mean, just the list goes on and on of all the top level people he worked with. And he heard some of my songs and said, "Yeah, let's let's do this." So I felt just, oh wow, so cool, so honored. So me and Danny worked on putting these songs out, and that's what I have now. And we just released Ambition as of April 3rd. That just went global, worldwide on Spotify and Amazon and iTunes and what have you. And the YouTube video is up, and I hired Raquel to help me with some promo, and here we are. And you know what? I'm really grateful to be able to talk to you about it and all your people out there.
Yeah, and I mean, with my crew, I mean, they, a lot of them really love the stories of um, well, it's hard to say the day because when I talk to people about that period of music, it seems like it's almost as popular now as it was then with, the Monsters of Rock cruises and these bands are still out playing and doing things. So, it's not a case of all that old is new again or whatever. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
I heard the video and it's got a throwback vibe. It's got a throwback sound, but it sounds
Mm-hmm.
new. It sounds today, and I think people embrace it because that's they love that music. It was a great type of music.
Well, thanks. And that's my intention. I grew up with the blues guitar and the early rock and roll, and I lived it and breathed it as, and man, I just hate that term classic rock.
Yeah.
They have to put labels on the record bins to sell you stuff, but when I was in high school, what they call classic rock now was cutting edge. It was new. But I guess that's just how the world works. But yeah, I love all forms of music, and I don't try and limit myself to one genre, even though I'm a true metalhead at heart. I love my Slayer, my Sepultura, my Pantera, and everything else. But I've really been fighting hard this time around in my life to start really create songs that are a little bit more meaningful, perhaps, and just impact them with all of the different styles that I ever grew up with different shades of guitar playing instead of just being, just kind of a one trick pony. Maybe that works for you or works against you. I'm not too sure as far as hopping over to different genres or.
Well, I don't know, man. If you're a one trick pony and it's a good trick, then it it works. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you are,
Mm,
but there's an awful lot of people that I have a singer friend who he always says I'm a one trick pony, but it's a pretty good trick, and basically meaning
mm-hmm.
he's the best of the best of what he does. Don't ask him to do jazz because he's not that guy. So I mean, I like the focus. I like the fact that you're honing in on that. Um, what I guess what are your aspirations, your goals? Like you get this out, it's out there now. You said it took you a couple of years. If I was to say, okay, Dan, what do you expect from this, or it's this or nothing. What do you want to see happen with it?
Well, my expectations are huge, beyond measure, but my realization is to not have expectations. If that makes sense. There's an old saying, without expectations, you won't have disappointments. But, enough fortune cookie advice. But, uh, my goal, you never know how things work in this world, but I would love to be headlining Madison Square Gardens within a year, playing the Hollywood Bowl. How about the Budokan? How about the SoFi? How about Rock in Rio? Castle Donington. It's all there. My dreams put me out there. I envision it, but getting from point A to point B is a whole other ball of wax.
It is, and it's never. I hate to say that because I'm in it, man. I mean, I promote artists and I know exactly what it's like. The business has never been. I don't want to say more difficult. It's been a challenge, and it is a
Hmm.
challenge, right? I mean, but what I find, and this is just me, is you find somebody that you know that's having some success at it, and you ask them how they're doing it, and you don't sit there and question their methods. You just
Mm.
find out what they're doing, and then follow along. Because if they're having success and you want it, it probably makes a lot of sense just to listen. Would you feel the same way?
Absolutely. It's funny. I'm going to date myself. I am now 62 years old, which is just mind boggling. I still feel 18 inside my brain.
Well, you look good for
And,
62, my friend. Not that 62 is old.
well, thanks, man. I guess the old joke is I wish I felt as good as I look, but yeah, I make dumb jokes all day long. But, for real, that's what the song Ambition is about. It's about that dream of that kid that wanted to be a rock and roll star and just never let it die. And it's not just me, but that's what gets me out of bed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sarcastic side of that song, if you listen to it, is it's true for me. 10 minutes before I ever get out of bed, I dream of all these great things. And then after about 5 minutes of realizing how the day is going to be going, it's just like, well, I guess those are just dreams. I might as well just have a cup of coffee and shut up.
Fair enough. So where do I send my viewers and my listeners to find out more about this project? Where do they get it? Obviously, it's streaming, but where do you want me to send them?
Well, shoot. I got the video on YouTube. My Facebook page is always open. Dan Sindel Music. That's my music page. Yeah, dansindel.com. Yeah, that's all out there.
And
Spotify. It's, same old places that everybody has their stuff on.
so the first single's Ambition. They only love
Yeah.
you when you're winning. I love it. I love
Thank you.
that. I want to thank you for doing this, my friend. I want to stay in touch with you. Every one of Raquel's clients that I've met has been absolutely brilliant to deal with and always goes on to great things. I'm positive you'll be no different. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to be on your program. I hope all you guys watching this had a good time, and say hi to me out there. I'll say hi back to
Go join the socials, kids. We're back after this.
you.